Thank you, everyone. I had a way that I was going to do this, and now I'm completely inspired by what's happened so far. So I'm going to talk about our community integration program called Bridge Care, but I will give you a sense of Prison Fellowship Canada. We have a 40-year legacy of in-prison work, primarily, and out of that work grew the community work. And I will say, Kyle, you were one of the chaplains that really challenged us on that front. He said a lot of guys want to change, and they have an interest in faith, and they have the best intentions, and then nobody's helping them when they come out. And he sort of said, you guys need to get going on that front too. So I just wanted to mention, building off of what Melva said as well, that for me, I think it was probably more like 30 years ago, I was a volunteer at a youth center in Oakville, of all places, maximum security, and my husband, journeyman carpenter, was teaching a carpentry class right there, and there are 3 guys in it, and one of the, I'm going to call them kids, one of the kids really caught on to carpentry, and ended up, he stayed in touch with my husband, he got out, became a contractor, has a family, and was doing great. And to the point that's being made, just in helping someone build up a skill and showing that they were worthy and cared for, really made all the difference in this young man's life. So with that being said, I wanted to just, we were talking about relational ministry. Sorry, I need my glasses. And I just wanted to, a beautiful story that I'm thinking you may all know, but I just can't get enough of it right now. And this is probably the best way that I could describe the kind of volunteering that we're looking for and what we mean about relational ministry. So it's on my slides, the parable of the Good Samaritan. So I've put the slides up, and I'll also just read it. A Jewish man was traveling from Jerusalem down to Jericho, and he was attacked by bandits. They stripped him of his clothes, beat him up, and left him half dead beside the road. By chance, a priest came along, but when he saw the man lying there, he crossed to the other side of the road and passed him by. A temple assistant walked over and looked at him lying there, but he also passed by on the other side. Then a despised Samaritan came along, and when he saw the man, he felt compassion for him. Going over to him, the Samaritan soothed his wounds with olive oil and wine and bandaged them. Then he put the man on his own donkey and took him to an inn where he took care of him. The next day he handed the innkeeper 2 silver coins, telling him, "Take care of this man. If his bill runs higher than this, I'll pay you the next time I'm here." Now, which of these 3 would you say was a neighbor to the man who was attacked by the bandits? Jesus asked. The man replied, "The one who showed him mercy." Then Jesus said, "Yes, now go and do the same." So just a lovely story that in our work, this is a story of a victim, or so it would seem, and it is. And of course, we're representing the justice-involved people. But in this story, the kingdom of God turns human values and judgments upside down. So we see that we have preconceived ideas about who the good people are, which would be the priest and the Levite, and then who the bad people are, which might be the despised Samaritan in this case. What we love about this story is it's a demonstration of the Samaritan taking someone as he found them, making the effort to, I think, Joseph, you were getting at this. This wasn't on his way, and it wasn't part of his trip, but he actually crossed the road and stopped what he was doing to care for someone else. That person didn't need to be particularly deserving of the help, but the Samaritan did that. He supported the person without judgment. He put his own needs second over the stranger's needs. He supported the person with excellence. He was thorough. He took care of the practical needs. And then he actually showed an example of boundaries, which we'll talk about today in terms of risk and what we're doing in our work. He showed boundaries. He kept going with his trip, but he made sure that the Samaritan was cared for, and he was going to loop back and make sure that everything was okay with the innkeeper. And in Jesus' response to the end of this parable, he talks about the paramountcy of mercy. So that generosity, compassion, and mercy, this story is a very good one for all that we're doing. So what I wanted to do was just be quite practical, because that was the task that Joseph gave. We have ways of making this fairly clear in terms of how you can get involved and how your churches can get involved in this kind of ministry. So if we can go to the slides. Great. So I wanted to talk about just our vision to kind of hit the nail on the head. We're a national community of reconciliation and restoration to prisoners, ex-prisoners, their families, and victims, using a faith-based approach to transformation. So everything we do is based on the life and teachings of Jesus Christ. And then our mission, what we do on the ground, is exactly what we're doing today, preparing and mobilizing the Canadian Christian community, which we see as the church network mostly, in response to the issues of crime and the restoration of offenders. So that's kind of what we're about. We have a presence across Canada. We've targeted 54 key cities, which I'll explain, for bridge care and our community integration work. We have upwards of 2,200 volunteers, and that includes our Angel Tree program, which we'll talk about in terms of kids of parents who are incarcerated and the effects on them in community. And then I realize now I should not be using the word practitioner, but we were talking about preparing and equipping churches and giving churches a real sense of comfort around prison ministry specifically, based on our knowledge of both our in-prison work and the people that we're working with in community. So anything we learn and understand, we pass that on to the churches so that you start to feel more and more comfortable delving into this area. So we are in 83% of all adult institutions, and out of the 20 youth centers across Canada, we're in about 7 of them. We're working our way into halfway houses as well across the country, which is really, really helpful from a community integration point of view. On any given day, there are 38,000 prisoners incarcerated, and roughly 400 are released each day into the community. So our core program areas are in-prison ministry, which was our foundation, and then our bridge care work, and then restorative work. So we run a surrogate victim offender restorative justice program so far in the prisons, but we're going to move that out into community. That's our intention. And then what we call our Angel Tree program is our family ministry. And that's really about context, taking a person, we were talking about the whole family, and looking at the whole family where somebody's been involved with crime. So in our in-prison ministry, and I'm only bringing this up because what we've realized with our community integration work is understanding the context of incarceration is really important. So when somebody's released from prison, we have a sense of ability around what have they been through from just being institutionalized, and the trauma and effect of that. Not to mention any turbulence that they've been going through prior to their experience of the crime, and then the arrest, and then the processing in jail. So our faith and justice programs, I'll mention 2 because we do them both inside and outside. The first one that I'll mention is the forgiveness journey. And the forgiveness journey is doing a deep dive into what we all know is difficult to understand. Forgiveness is undeserved. It's not fair or equal, it's grace. So I think that what we would all agree that that's very hard to understand and accept. For someone that's done a crime and has faced the stigma and shame of even the court situation, it's even harder. So we've got 10 sessions that go through God's relationship to us, including things like we're known inside and out. If you're known, you've got nothing to hide. So someone's not going to find you out later. God's not going to learn something about you down the road and say, oh, this person's not worth it to me because of what they've done. No, you're known. You're loved unconditionally. We talk about the healing process that comes with that. Through the process of forgiveness, that peace, that inner peace that you can feel, as Kyle mentioned, incarceration can be of the mind, and certainly the freedom that forgiveness brings up freedom that we all benefit from. And then the idea that when you're forgiven and you understand that you're worthy and you're unconditionally loved by your Creator, that peace can pass outwards, and that has a ripple effect in community, that when you're living a life of peace and passing it forward, everybody starts to benefit as that flows through. So that's one of them. And the other one we do that I wanted to mention is our life skills program. It's called the Reentry Journey. So the idea is that we start a conversation around how relevant the Bible is for those who are interested, and how you can use your Bible to actually instruct wisdom into all the practical considerations of your life. So we look at topics like conflict resolution, job readiness, job readiness, money management, anger management, relationships, communication. Practical things that people can get their heads around in terms of reintegrating in society, and then demonstrating the fact that the Bible actually has practical merit. It's not a dusty old text that lives on a bookshelf or that you leave behind you once you've left the chaplain in the prison. So those were the two I wanted to mention. Maybe we'll talk about the restorative justice one in the panel. And then I'll just go into our PF by phone program. So during COVID, we were scrambling a little bit because we do have a big presence in our in-prison work, and our volunteers were completely locked out. Still are to a certain degree across Canada. So for the 2 years of COVID, prisoners were not getting visits from volunteers for the most part. This is a complete miracle, but we were offered by another agency that was moving into correspondence work a bridge care phone line. And what that phone line did in Ontario specifically was give prisoners a chance to call us directly, asking us for help with their reintegration. So I can't tell you how amazing that was. God solved a whole bunch of issues, but mostly for prisoners needing to identify themselves where the chaplain wasn't able to. And so with that line, we were able to go to the Solicitor General in Ontario and ask about another phone line, and that's what we're calling PF by phone. And that phone line was a way for prisoners just to call for spiritual encouragement, to have someone to chat with for 20 minutes at a time, just to pick up the phone. We didn't heavily advertise it as a Christian line. The volunteers are Christians, but we encourage the volunteers just have encouraging conversation. If a person wants prayer or scripture reading, go ahead and do that. So the line is open 9 to 9, 7 days a week, and we're getting about 400 calls a month on this line. And I mention that because through this PF by phone line, we were able to get those volunteers to mention the bridge care line where the prisoners are interested in reintegration support. So through our bridge care program, we've been able to offer what we call just straight practical support for anybody that's interested. We created a directory. We need a lot of volunteer help for it, looking for really good resources for people, housing, addiction treatment centers, immigration, legal services, food banks, churches that are offering hot meals, you name it. But we've tried to curate a listings directory that justice-involved people can access on our website. Our phone operators can provide that information on the phone, and then we can start to build in community partnerships. And then through the core bridge care program, which I think I'm getting to with my next slide, the idea there is for anybody that's expressed any level of interest in learning a bit more about Jesus or a faith-based walk, we offer a full bridge care program. So what I mean by that is through our church networks and our volunteers, we train up volunteers to walk alongside somebody who's coming out of the prisons and the jails. So what that would look like is, and think of Prison Fellowship Canada as a bridge between the prisons and the chaplains who we're working for, I'll put it that way, and then to get them to a church community ultimately, if that's the right fit. But the volunteers are getting to know them relationally, and they're learning about them, and they're just being a listening ear, giving empathy and maybe some good guidance, and just helping them as they come out. And wow, the candidates in this program have responded to this like a parched person looking for water. So right now we have 88 clients in the program. And we have about 180 trained volunteers in bridge care. You can imagine that we're training you all on boundaries, understanding what the clients have typically been through, active listening and empathy, anything you'd need to know around boundaries, safety, the safety of the client, which would be the person coming out, your safety, confidentiality, that kind of thing. So we give you lots of training. And then the idea is that you'll walk alongside them, you'll meet them at the gate, and you'll just be somebody that cares about them with no judgment. And then you'll help them. Maybe it would be the life skills program or something that introduction to Jesus, or you'll meet them where they're at. And then that can go on for, we say 3 to 18 months, but it's a relationship, so it could be less or more. And then help them to find a church that they could really enjoy. We've had, some volunteers will bring the person to their church. Other ones will realize, oh, this person loves singing and worship, and I know that there's a really good church near where they're living that has that. But they would maybe take them there and be with them. I don't know if any of you have had to go to a church that you, in another city or town, and maybe you've felt a bit overwhelmed. I know when I was a university student and I was brought up in church, I remember going to one church specifically, and I was kind of shy, and I just sort of snuck in and sat in a seat, and then somebody said, oh, sorry, that seat's saved for my friend. And I remember just thinking, I'm out. I'm not staying. So the idea there is that you've got your people, and they care about you, and they're your community, they're your mentors, they've got your back, they know you, and then you walk alongside them. So that would be the Bridge Care program. I'm going to ask my colleague, after I show you our video for Bridge Care, to come up. Raymond Mola and I work closely together. We've kind of divided up our Bridge Care work in terms of he's been working with the men and I've been working with the women, and the program is just growing and growing. And once we use up a volunteer team, and what I mean by that is we've matched them, we always need more people, and we know that as chaplains get back into having full access to the prisoners post-COVID, we know that we're going to have a fairly busy pipeline of people that are interested in the program. And so I would encourage that practical step of getting to know us, going on our website, filling out our volunteer application, telling your friends at your churches and in your communities about the program, and helping us to build it out that way. So I wanted to show the video now, and then Raymond will come up right after.
Bridge Care is a program of prison fellowship that really addresses the needs that ex-offenders have as they're leaving prison or jail, and then prior to them going into a church community. There is a stage in between to address their concerns, address gaps, and get them prepared and ready to fully enter a community.
I think a lot of times in society, unfortunately in the church, we tend to forget the human and think only of the criminal. Yes, we are aware that the person has sinned, the person has erred in society, and we don't take away the fact that they need to pay their debt to society. But we see the need beyond what they have done, the need for their souls to be saved.
When I was 23 years old, I found myself in an altercation at a bar where I was kept carrying a weapon, and I ended up stabbing a gentleman 9 times in the chest. Immediately at the scene, he was declared dead, and they were charging me initially with second-degree murder. And it was about 48 hours later, after having him in a drug-induced coma, that he survived, and they dropped the charge to aggravated assault. Because he survived, and really by the mercy of God, I was given the bare minimum for a federal sentence. There was nothing available that prepared me for release. I was left on pretty much on my own to figure out the next steps.
All the work that has been done in a prison, whether it be the Bible study programs, life skill programs that we do, that thread gets dropped if somebody leaves prison. And the Bridge Care program is a way of picking that thread up on the outside to continue the rehabilitation journey, as well, most importantly, the faith journey.
God chooses His church. He's chosen the church as His means of communicating His love. And so if we're His church, we need to communicate His love, including to those who are hurting, those who are in prison, those who are coming out of prison.
If a church is willing to open their arms carefully, cautiously, it provides a community. It's a support group.
Even if we solve the temporal problems of a person's life, they still have an eternal problem. And that problem is what Jesus came here ultimately to fix for us.
If the church has true compassion for all humanity, not just the selected few that dress good, look good, and smell good, we would not have enough space in church. Because I'm telling you, these guys are hungry. They really want a community.
The harvest is plentiful. The workers are few, Jesus looks on the multitude. He has compassion on them because he sees that they're like sheep without a shepherd.
The Good Samaritan is a great narrative that explains what's going on in this ministry, and that you have to make a decision to cross the road and engage with someone who you may regard as an enemy, you may regard as being hostile to you. It's certainly the other. But we come alongside of that individual regardless of what society may say, and we bandage those wounds, we care for the individual, and we help to set them up straight and get them going. And that is actually the meaning. To set one up straight is actually the meaning of justice.
It takes a lot of stick-to-itiveness, a lot of willingness to hang in there and never give up, just like God doesn't give up on us. Same way.
When Jonah went into the whale, that's what it's like being in prison. You're in a whale right now. And it's dark and it's scary, but there's hope.